Yeah, Mad Panic Gaming!
Crazy!
What's up, everybody? Jim here. Welcome back for another epic game hunt, and I hope you're ready for unbridled 16-bit action, because today we are taking a look at 100% Super Famicom games. It's Nintendo's 16-bit powerhouse, all video long. So I hope you're ready for it, because that's what's coming up next. Alright, 16-bit action, extravaganza, explosion of pixels. We're getting started. In Retro Game Camp, we got a copy of Kirby Bowl, aka Kirby's Dream Course, one of the more unusual, I guess, golf games. Like, it plays like, I guess, a game of putt-putt golf using Kirby as the ball, hence why I guess it's called Kirby. It's meant to be Kirby Ball, or maybe it does mean bowl, but Dream Course on other parts of the world. It's like 1080 with a battery replacement in 2021, though. I wonder how long those things last. I have no idea, but we've got some Fatal Fury 2, that's nice, and special, which I like the artwork on these. They started with kind of a more traditional anime look, and then eventually went for something a little more realism. 2480 for Gambare Goemon, which I think is the first one, which was released in the US as Legend of the Mystical Ninja. What else we got here? Ooh, some G Gundam for 2780. This one is interesting. I think most people know that Gundam Wing Endless Duel is an amazing fighter on the Super Famicom. G Gundam, not nearly as good if you ask me, but still pretty good. A decent enough 16-bit fighter, and appropriately based on G Gundam, which was an anime about a Gundam fighting tournament. So it makes sense that it would get converted into a fighting game, and I do like the Gundams from that series, the Rose Gundam and other various ones like that. Some Chrono Trigger, again with a fresh battery. The box on this one is in C-grade condition because it's spotty, it's a little bit dirty, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I feel like when you got a Chrono Trigger or any of these like 16-bit Square games that had the solid white boxes, they really got to be clean. We got some Super R-Type, which is a fantastic game in its own right. An earlier shoot-'em-up for the Super Famicom and SNES, so it is very much plagued with the slowdown. A much better game is R-Type 3, the Third Lightning. That's one of my favorite SNES shooters. It looks and plays a lot better than Super R-Type. But for the time it was released, and you know, it's still R-Type, so it's still a fun game, just not exactly perfect. 2180 Super Street Fighter 2, The New Challengers, with wonderful box art taken from the animated film Super Donkey Kong 2, all with fresh batteries, or at least 2 years fresh anyway. But they got all of those. They're in nice condition. We've got some Super Puyo Puyo, which is a lovely game, which I can never remember. I think Puyo Puyo 2 was converted into Kirby's Avalanche, and Super Bomberman 2, again for 1080. That's really cheap. That's like $6 right now. Super Bomberman 2 is a lot of fun. I can't remember. I know the original Super Bomberman got a release, at least in North America, but there are like 5 or 6 Super Bomberman games on the Super Famicom. I think the vast majority of them stayed exclusive to Japan. There's not a huge difference from one to the other. They're all just, you know, Bomberman games, but they are a lot of fun. It's 1080, so like the box and manual are in C condition, but I mean, for $6 for a boxed game like that, like, can you really argue with that? You shouldn't argue with that, because you'd be arguing with an inanimate object, and that's a sign that your mind is starting to go, but I wouldn't complain about it either. Some Super Mario Kart 1280, so again, these games are like $7, $8. Very affordable, which is surprising for Retro Game Camp, if I'm being completely honest. 1280 on Tetris Battle Gaiden, a game I have talked about seemingly to no end on this channel. One of my favorite puzzle games ever, just a great competitive game of Tetris. It's kind of like they took Tetris and mixed it with something like Puyo Puyo, where you've got all these different characters with different special attacks and things. A lot of fun. So if you've never played that one, I recommend playing it either in physical form or if you get a ROM, or if it's on the eShop. Go for that. Some Cho Makaimura, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, a game I never liked as a kid, even though now as an adult, I dig it. I think it's a fun game and I can appreciate the challenge. As a kid though, just hated the fact that I couldn't really get anywhere in that game. Zelda Kamigami no Triforce, 3,200 yen. So that's in the neighborhood of like 24 bucks or so. That's not too bad, I guess, even though it's a very common game. Some Sailor Moon S, which is an interesting game for sure. 3,400 here. And I've heard people refer to it as being like the most broken fighting game ever made. And I do know that either the original version or a modded version has become pretty popular at like fighting game tournaments. Just because of how wonky it is. But I've played it before, and I didn't play competitively like at any versus, but it was a lot of fun. And then we got Sailor Moon R, another one of the Sailor Moon beat-em-ups, the second one, I think. This one actually has multiplayer in it, which is cool, and I'm pretty sure you could play, I forget her name in Japanese, the Sailor Mini Moon, which seems a little bit, I mean, I know like they're already like teenage girls. Like, that's the show, is like a bunch of teenage girls fighting off bad guys and monsters and stuff. But do you really need, like, to throw an 8-year-old into the mix? Get her all busted up? Although they did that in Power Rangers eventually, didn't they? They took, like, a 12-year-old kid. They're like, hey, you're a Power Ranger now, kid. Get out there and risk your life. Beauty and the Beast, which I've actually never played. The SNES Beauty and the Beast, so I can't attest if it's any good or bad. I did like the cartoon as a kid, though. Some pretty killer music in there. Final Fight 2. Excellent game. That's like 2,000 yen. So, what, 14 bucks? Something like that? Not expensive at all. And the original Final Fight for 2,100. The box is in C-grade condition, and the other things are in B-grade. That's something that's at least nice about Game Camp, is they give you a good idea of the condition of everything. Mickey's Tokyo Disneyland Adventure 2,600. This one's pretty cool. This one stayed in Japan. It's another like Mickey platformer. But here you have balloons. So you've got air balloons and you've got water balloons. Your water balloons are used as an attack, but you can also fill them up to be like little platforms to bounce off of. And then your air balloons obviously help you sort of like maneuver around the stage. It's actually a pretty fun game. It's not bad, but I can only guess because it's set in Tokyo Disney. Maybe that's why they didn't release it. Just change the setting for the other regions. There, I solved your problem for you. 880 yen. That's very cheap. That's like 4 bucks maybe. For a copy of Yu Yu Hakusho 2 by Namco. Which is another game I've brought up numerous times in the past. I come across it a lot on my game hunts just because it's a fairly common game, and so it's a fairly inexpensive one. And it's a decent little 2D fighter. If you haven't tried it yet, if you've played pretty much all the other 2D fighters on the SNES, but you have not tried Yu Yu Hakusho 2 yet, I would suggest you do, because it's pretty good. That, along with like Gundam Wing Endless Duel, Yu Yu Hakusho Final, things like that. Those are really good fighters that were not released internationally. So check those out. But now we are in Trader, another place I love to frequent whenever I can. $35.80 for Final Fight 2, so that's definitely more expensive than what we saw in Game Camp. And 10,300 yen for Final Fight Guy. So that's maybe around 65 bucks. Something like that. But that is a rare variant of that game, $57.80. Fantastic game. Another game I don't think I've ever done a full-on review of it. But I have discussed this game, at least in pickups videos. I love this game. I love anything that's basically swords and sorcery. Grew up as a kid loving Conan and Beastmaster and all those classics. And so some of those 16-bit fantasy, sword and sorcery type games Capcom was putting out back in the day. Can't get enough of those. But moving right along, I mentioned this earlier, Yu Yu Hakusho Final. 4780, another good 2D fighter by Namco. And this one, the character sprites are a lot smaller, but the gameplay is much faster than it is in Yu Yu Hakusho 2. So this is one that I think I would recommend this over Yu Yu Hakusho 2. I think it plays a bit better. The speed is what really helps it out. But overall, a fun game. Controls more or less like your classic Street Fighter style game. But with some awesome Yu Yu Hakusho characters and a little bit pricey, over 11,000 yen for a copy of Popful Mail. And I think I'm a bigger fan of the PC Engine version of Popful Mail. I like that one a lot. But I cannot argue with the Super Famicom version. If you've never played Popful Mail before, either version, it is just a pretty fun, kind of like action platformer, very minor RPG elements to it. I think you can level your characters up a little bit, but for the most part, it's just a straightforward action platformer. And it gives you a few different characters to play as. So you got Mel, and she's got her sword and whatnot. You have a little wizard character, and I think like a dragon thing that like breathes fireballs. But very fun games. Popful Mail, if you've never tried them, go for it. Might want to go for a ROM. They're getting a little pricey these days. But they are pretty great. But we've got some Art of Fighting, some Rockman X3, Rockman 7, Rockman and Forte, aka Mega Man and Bass. We've got just a whole lineup of Dragon Quest games, which for whatever reason, the complete versions are getting like a little more expensive, even though they're very common games. Speaking of Akira Toriyama stuff, we got some Dragon Ball Z Hyper Dimension, which is another one that's not getting really any cheaper these days, so snap it up if you can, because, in my opinion, I think in the opinion of a lot of people, it is the best of the Dragon Ball Z games on the Super Famicom, probably the best of the 16-bit DBZ games in general. Actually, now that I think about it, it's probably the best of, like, everything before the PS2. Like, some of the PS2 games are really good. But honestly, DBZ games, especially like some of the 32-bit games, not very good. The Super Butoden games are okay, and they have them all lined up here. And as you can see, the artwork on these is beautiful. Like, if you're a DBZ fan, these are all worth owning just for the cool artwork and just kind of like the nostalgia of it all. The old 16-bit and 8-bit games. But yeah, I'd say Hyperdimension was the best DBZ game ever made up until, like, I don't know, maybe like Budokai 2 or something like that. And then one of the RPGs featuring a young Goku. The RPGs are pretty fun, although I never really got into the 8-bit ones because I think they used like a card system of some sort, and I could just never really get into the gameplay. But we've got way more stuff here. We got Bahamut Lagoon sitting over there. That's a classic for you. Some of the Sailor Moon puzzle games, which is really cool. Some Puzzle Bobble, very nice, and a little bit of Bugs Bunny for you by Sunsoft. So you know it's good. Sunsoft is the mark of quality. We got some Cyber Formula. I've only ever played the Cyber Formula game on the GameCube, but that one was pretty damn good. Here we have STG Strike Gunner. And this is maybe a little bit of a hidden gem of Super Famicom shooters. Many years ago, I did a video on my top 10 Super Famicom and SNES shoot-'em-ups, and I hadn't even really considered this one, but in retrospect, it is a good one. I don't think I would have put it on my top 10, because I was happy with everything that I had on my top 10, but Strike Gunner, not a bad shooter at all. At the very least, it's worth playing if you're a shooter fan. It's definitely better than some of the worst 16-bit shooters, stuff like Curse and whatever else. But we got all, I mean, it's like being in a little art gallery here. A little mini art gallery with all of this box art. Just absolutely beautiful stuff. We've got some Sandler No Daiboken, some Donkey Kong, some Marios. All the classics. All the greats are there. And then we are magically whisked away to everyone's favorite Super Potato. Which I say facetiously, because a lot of people really do not like Super Potato. Seeing it as a bit of a tourist trap, even though, honestly, with the exchange rate right now, it ain't too terrible. We got some ActRaiser for you, which is great. I like the little kind of like RPG game it is, but I'm actually a bigger fan of ActRaiser 2. Aladdin, which is fantastic. I really like the SNES version. I've played it way more than I've played the Genesis version. And we've got some Arkanoid. I think it's supposed to be Do It Again, but the way it's spelled, it's like Do It Again. As if it was titled by Homer Simpson. No idea what the hell that's about, but I mean, if you like Arkanoid, hey, do it again. I like Arkanoid. I like bouncing my balls around whenever I can. Much to the detriment of some of my friends. They get a little annoyed when I do that. Here we have Ikari no whatever the hell. This one, I don't know. I can't tell you if this one is a Japan exclusive or not. It is a fun little top-down run and gun. It is by Jalico, I believe. Jalico is like one of those developers slash publishers back in the day where they made games in all the genres I liked. I like run and guns. I like shoot 'em ups. Oh yeah, Ikari no Yosai. Thank you. Thank you, Jim, for holding that up to the camera. They made beat 'em ups and shooters and everything like that, but they can never quite measure up to companies like Capcom and what have you. SD The Great Battle. This is a series that's pretty interesting. So the first one is kind of a top-down like adventure game, like action adventure, where you get to play as all these chibi Bandai characters. But then after this, they had beat 'em ups, and then they had action platformers. With Great Battle 5, probably it's the most expensive, but also probably the best. That's the one that's like Old West, little like super deformed characters. So you get a Gundam and a cowboy hat. And who never wanted to see a Gundam and a cowboy hat? Speaking of V Gundam, one of the mini Gundam kind of like strategy games. So I'm not too terribly interested in those. We've got the shooting collection here with Star Force. It's, I believe, the Tecmo shooting collection, so that's pretty awesome. We got some Goemon, including Goemon 2. Again, another game I come across on my game hunts very often, and another one I sing the praises of quite a lot. I think it's one of the better platformers on the console, regardless of region. I think it's one that every 16-bit enthusiast should play, and my friend Jimmy Hopper would agree with me on that. He's a Goemon head. Front Mission Gun Hazard, awesome game, still inexpensive, but I'm pretty sure that got a re-release recently. Not entirely certain about that. Kunio no Odin, another pretty fun puzzler. I think you can play it a few different styles. I tend to play it kind of like a game of columns. And it's little food, little things you would find in Odin. And then you can block the other character with little food sticks. And that's how it is. Again, it's a competitive puzzle game like a Puyo Puyo or a Tetris Battle Gaiden. Some Kunio Dodgeball Club, also very fun. And then Absolute Classic for 3,058 yen. So it's like 20 bucks maybe. For a complete copy of Gradius 3, one of my all-time favorite shoot-em-ups, even on the Super Famicom. Despite all the slowdown and stuff, I just love it. We got some Go-Go Akman. We've got some Cosmo Gang, the video, which is an excellent game, very fun. Essentially like a cute-em-up version of Galaga. So if you like Galaga, you'd like Cosmo Gang, the video. They made two of these Cosmo Gang games, I think. There's this one, and then there's one called Cosmo Gang The Puzzle, which you'll never believe this, but it's a puzzle game. It's also pretty good. So I like these Namco games. I think these characters were originally, there was like some little prize game you could play in arcades, and I guess that was popular enough to warrant some actual video games. Twinbee, Rainbow, Bell Adventure, really cool Twinbee game. But not a shoot-em-up like the rest of the series. It is, in fact, a platformer. And the closest thing I could compare it to, I mean, it does have gameplay kind of similar to a Rocket Knight game. You have, you're the Twinbee ship, so you have your jet boosters and whatnot. So you can go flying in all directions and stomp on enemies, and you collect bells instead of coins. So it's really fun. It's almost like a mix of like Mario and Rocket Knight. And then also you can run on straightaways. So it seems like somebody at Konami was playing some Sonic, and they were like, let's make the Twinbee characters run fast. What do you say? And they collect bells instead of rings. More Dragon Quest games here. Again, all lined up, and there's a whole bunch of them. So they should be fairly inexpensive. And they're directly next to all the DBZ games. Again, like a little nostalgic art gallery. It's just so awesome. We got some Super Castlevania 4 over here, aka Akumajo Dracula, not getting any cheaper. We've got some multiple Parodius games. Area 88, aka UN Squadron, another one of my favorites. And our Rockman X games, again, you can peruse all the prices here. They actually come in a range of prices because depending on the condition, so they don't just leave one out on the shelf. You can take it to the counter and then have your pick of the litter. The original Sailor Moon, which is a fun beat-em-up, but it's single-player only. Which beat-em-ups are always more fun with a friend. You can say that about a lot of things, but especially about beat-em-ups. Poppin' Twinbee. Wonderful game for like 4,000 yen complete. So that's okay, I suppose. But this is, again, one of the maybe one of the better shooters on the Super Famicom, because it's a lot of fun, beautiful visuals, great soundtrack, and programmed in such a way that it doesn't really suffer from the kind of slowdown you might expect. Really good. I wouldn't put it above a Gradius 3, mind you, but Poppin' Twinbee, excellent. Of course, I think you can actually get it in like a collection on the Saturn and the PS1, along with Twinbee Yahoo, which is awesome. We've also got some Raiden, we've got some Rushing Beat, aka like Rival Turf and the sequels. I think Brawl Brothers was one of the sequels. But that's nice. We had a pretty good selection of games in Super Potato, which is surprising right now because they've been getting cleaned out as of late. They've been getting hit with a rush of customers ever since the borders opened up. But now, finally, we are in Surugaya, of all places, and you might find this interesting. 3,500, the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I guess RPG for the Super Famicom. I myself am a fan of the 2D Fighter by Capcom, and even Golden Wind on the PS2 is pretty cool. I've tried playing the JoJo RPG in the past, and it didn't grab me, but it's very story-driven. If you're a fan of JoJo and you enjoy the story and characters of it, it might be a game worth looking into, though I don't know if there's any kind of English translation. 7,900, so like $50 for a copy of Jikyo Oshaberi Parodius, which is one with the old grandpa that keeps talking to you. So that's cool. Parodius games are always awesome. This one may be the best of the bunch. It has a ton of characters to choose from. Really great visuals if you're looking at it right now. This game was also released on the Saturn and the PS1, and those look better, obviously, but for just a 16-bit game, wow. A lot of detail, a lot of color, just a great game. We've got some Adventure Island here for 4,100. And who can complain about some Adventure Island? 4,100 for a complete copy. I guess that's not so bad. Again, I have to always try to do the math in my head, today's exchange rate. But I think that really comes out 20-something bucks maybe. Which I shudder to think how much it would cost boxed and complete in the US. Ganbare Goemon 4, which is also really good. I mean, they're all great. Any of the 16-bit Goemon games are going to be a lot of fun. But if you ask me, if I could only play one, it would be Ganbare Goemon 2, although I can't really argue with any of them. They're all really good. Again, if you're not exactly a Goemon head, if you haven't really tried them out before, definitely go for it. Can you tell I've been watching too much on cinema recently? Here for the Kunio-kun heads, another copy of Kunio no Odin. I'm going to stop that now. That's going to get annoying really fast. Some of the Crayon Shin-chan games, a couple of them here, those are fun, although they're weird. They're kind of like little adventure exploratory games, or at least the first one is. It's been a while since I've played them, but I just remember playing them and thinking, wow, this is kind of odd. I think that was one of the first games I actually played on my Z-SNES emulator back in the day. Like, I just wanted to emulate Japanese games, so I was playing like DBZ and Gundam Wing and Crayon Shin-Chan. 2200 on a copy of Super Mario Collection, aka Super Mario All-Stars, which is a much better title if you ask me. It's not just a collection. Come on now. Put some respect on it. They're the All-Stars. We got a lot more stuff down here, including a copy of Super Nazo Puyo, which is a fun, kind of like interesting twist. It kind of combines a bit of the Monogatari, Maho Monogatari, where it's story-driven, and you walk around and explore with your little character, meet other characters, and then it's Puyo Puyo, obviously, but each puzzle has like some sort of requirement for you to finish the stage, finish it in however many moves, or clear all the Puyos of a certain color, so they're pretty fun. Beautiful green box, Bomberman 4, Super Bomberman 4, excuse me. You know when you say the title of a game on the Super Famicom, you must say Super. And here we got some Super Bomberman Panic Bomber. Speak of the puzzle games and they appear. Panic Bomber, another really fun one. Again, very much in the vein of like a Puyo Puyo or something like that. But instead of Puyos, you get little Bomberman heads. And as the name implies, you get bombs. You can use bombs to clear away big sections of the screen. And it's a lot of fun. Again, just another like bright, colorful, sort of cheery, but very competitive, very addictive, very fun puzzle game. Panic Bomber. So that's one to pick up if you like a good puzzler. Especially if you like things like Puyo Puyo or Tetris Battle Gaiden. It's in that same vein. Some Super Donkey Kong, 1100. It's a nice price on that. 1400 for Super Donkey Kong 2. So both of them under 10 bucks complete. If you find a loose card, that'll probably run you like $2. Very, very inexpensive these days. Another copy of Tetris Battle Gaiden. They're doing 1100 on it here, which is very cool. When I first started collecting games back in the day, that was like a $50 game. Collapsed in price somehow. Panel de Pon for 1800. Another brilliant game. Brilliant puzzler. You probably know it better as Tetris Attack, but I know her as Panel de Pon. And then Sailor Moon S, maybe Fwa Fwa Panic? One of the Sailor Moon puzzle games. There's like 3 or 4 of those. I don't know. They when Sailor Moon was at the peak of its popularity, they didn't hesitate. They rushed out a lot of those games. 1700 on Roku Denashi Blues, a game I reviewed like 10 years ago or something. Pretty fun little fighting game featuring characters from the anime. High school kids fighting. Which, if you remember, like the kind of fights that happened in high school, they didn't look nearly as cool as they do in video games. It's kind of hard to follow some, a lot of flailing. And to wrap it up, a little bit of Ranma 1/2, one of the fighting games. I think the one that was released as Street Combat or something, I don't know. Anyway, that's enough for me. We looked at a lot of 16-bit. I'm tired, so hey, I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye!